afternoon, everybody. Dana Burkholder here with special guest David Collis, who is a good friend of mine, also my uncle, an author, an athlete, an artist, and a big long list of awesomeness. And I'd like for him to do just a quick intro of his background with sports to kind of connect us to his athletic side. And we can start the conversation today about the art of net sports and inner competition. So Dave, welcome.
Thank you, Dana. This is very exciting. So let me just start off that when I was a boy, I played a lot of sports. And as a 6-year-old, I was out on a surf mat learning how to ride the waves. And that lasted until I was about 21 or 22 when I kind of just started to surfing just started to take more of a back seat. At the same time, I was playing baseball and I was playing football, and I played a lot of badminton. And then being down at the beach, there was a lot of beach volleyball that was going on. But my parents belonged to the Manhattan Beach Badminton Club, and starting around 8 years old, they put a racket in my hand, and I seemed to take it up fairly quickly. And I found kind of my voice, so to speak, as a small child playing racket sports. And from there, I ended up having several coaches, actually many coaches, and really started to excel. And it wasn't until about 1973, I guess I'm kind of now telling my age here, when I got a coach who was from Thailand, who really started to teach me kind of the inner workings of the game and how to think about playing the game. And then from there, it just I just kept getting more coaches that kept on honing all of my skills. And so anyway, in badminton, there's quite a bit of athleticism and skill, like within any sports. And there's a great deal of endurance that one has to kind of have, and flexibility and hand-eye coordination. There's just all those different types of skills that are necessary, and the speed of the game is actually quite fast. There was several years ago, one of the top world players was playing, and one of his shots was clocked at 256 miles an hour, and of course the bird exploded. I don't think I ever hit anything that fast. But definitely things were above the 100-mile-an-hour range. So you had to have a great deal of kind of intuition and skill to manage the speed of the game.
Yeah, badminton is such an amazing sport. We don't necessarily look at it from the outside and think it's a difficult sport. But when you get inside those lines and you have to generate that much activity in short bursts, the skill and the stamina really become a factor, right, in being able to compete at a high level.
Exactly. And then not only that, you have to start thinking about where the next shot might be coming from. So again, the bird was moving in such a fast velocity that it could be moving, as a drop shot. It could be moving to the back of the court. It could be moving to the side of the court. You could be smashing it. And so at all times, you had to be ready to engage the bird where it's coming to you. And you had to have I found that I had to have a lot of intuition for that to happen. So
how did you develop that intuition as a player? Was it just the repetition of training that developed that intuition? Was it having a lot of skills that allowed you to kind of access them without thinking? Do you feel like your eyes became intuitive and you could see the opponent's shot before it happened? I mean, it's probably a combination of those things.
Well, everything that you mentioned is what happened. And of course, when you start off and you're learning the game, you're learning just how to hit a shot. Is it an overhead drop shot? Is it an overhead clear? Is it a smash? What is it? And then you get into a net game. How do you enter into the net? What kind of shot are you hitting? Are you going to tumble the bird? Are you going to spin it? Are you going to flick it? Are you going to cross court it? All those kind of things are part of the decisions that you have to make. And some of these are very quick. So in the corner of your mind, you might be seeing where your opponent is. And is he moving crosswise? Well, then maybe you want to cross the bird away from him. Is he Is he in a position where a drop shot directly in front of you is going to be the more difficult shot for him to get because he's going to have to cover more ground? Are you going to give him time? So sometimes certain shots took a little bit more time to hit and execute than, say, just a block shot, because you're trying to keep certain angles in the game, and you're also trying to keep the speed of the game at a high level, and you're also trying to remove somebody's angles so that you're not at a disadvantage. Of course, that's always the hope in every one of those rallies. But the first things that you had to learn is you just had to learn how to hit shots, and then the next one is that you had to learn how to hit the shot and then hit the follow-up shot and the third shot and the fourth shot. And so sometimes just our practices, we're going to spend say 15 or 20 minutes just practicing hitting a drop shot, and then hitting a cross-court drop shot, and then just basic stuff like just serve and return a serve. So some of the basics of the games were practiced quite a bit, and then certain just simple things were done over and over and over again in a very repetitive manner. Because the last thing you want to do is you don't want to be trying to figure out how to hit a shot in the middle of a very intense game. You want all of that skill set already part of your toolbox, and then you're executing everything. The most important thing was how to learn how to think and play, in a sense, play a chess match while you're out on the court. And that was a big challenge for me athletically. I was not as challenged as I was when it came to more of the mental side of the game. I just had such an enormous abilities to be able to hit a lot of shots that I was actually head and shoulders above a lot of people. So learning how to play the game and playing like a chess match, in a sense, was as I got older, became a more of a challenge to engage in. And then the other thing that I taught myself, which was actually, I didn't even understand what it is that I was doing, but I taught myself how to pre-visualize a game before I played it. So about from the time around 15 or 16, I was, in a sense, meditating on my game and visualizing my game. So I would just sit very quietly, either on my bed or in a chair, and I would just think through and start seeing the game play out in front of my mind. And that helped quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine that strategy is really important in badminton, and just like it is in volleyball, and the sequence of shots and playing the court, to your advantage really makes a big difference. So to be able to visualize that ahead of time probably gave you, a strategic advantage going in.
That helped. The other thing that helped too is that I always played with one particular player in doubles. And so he and I grew up together playing together. And so the two of us had very strong parts of our game. And
yeah, it sounds like badminton, when you're playing it at the level that you were with the amount of hours that you were playing is really difficult physically, and recovery was really important.
Yeah. Well, you got your ankles, you got your knees, you got your hips, and you got your shoulders. And then, of course, you would have, you'd pull calf muscles or hamstrings or your glutes. That was common. I had, I pulled muscle stomachs. And so, muscles in my stomach. And so those all started to impact the frequency of playing. And then what I started to notice that is, and you probably have found this out too, is that if you're not playing regularly and you just stop playing for 1 week, you're going to see that you are microseconds off the speed of your game. And you are microseconds off the looking at the ball and following the ball, or in this case, following the bird. And that made a big difference, knowing that you hadn't played for a couple of weeks or a week and you're just off. Everything was off. And so if that week turned into 2, or two weeks turned into 4 weeks, then getting back up to speed took quite a bit of effort, And then all the while you're wondering, are you going to get re-injured here? And in some cases it happened again. So, and of course at that time we didn't have all the sports medicine that we do today. So.
Yeah, right now, obviously with the kids not able to practice at the gym with COVID-19, we've got a continuation program to provide ongoing training so that they don't lose their game completely. Obviously, it's not going to be the same because they're not in the gym, like you're saying, every day, getting that speed, getting those angles, practicing those shots. But we're looking to provide as much resources as possible, and then also do different kinds of education to spend time on things that we don't necessarily have time on when we're actually in the gym.
Right.
Developing the inner game, improving their understanding of emotional intelligence, talking about different aspects of leadership, watching film so that they understand that, the sequence of plays and how to
Yeah.
recover, and, the different shots that you can make out there on the court to create this situation or that situation. And also just observe what high level volleyball looks like so that they can start to, visualize that in their own mind, and start to wire that into their experience as they head back into their training. So,
Right.
it's exciting to hear you, comment on all these different aspects of the athlete and the athlete's development and what goes into really being a high level athlete. And then I think one thing that is something I'm really passionate about is helping athletes kind of find that zone, and for you to be able to play 6 finals in one day and get through it, demonstrates that you can really be in a zone that is sort of elevated above, that typical threshold that the body can manage or that the emotions can manage. You know what I mean? Like after a 2-hour practice, we're all exhausted, but you probably played badminton that day for 6 or 8 hours. So, what was the mental state you were able to get into when you were competing in those situations?
Well, first of all, I just loved playing the game. So, and I loved practicing. So it's a big difference to be able to say, I only want to play during a tournament. Well, I actually enjoyed the whole process. So I was, it wasn't uncommon for me to be up at the club for 15 to 20 hours a week. And that didn't include tournaments. So there would be a couple of days where I would be up there for 4 or 5 or 6 hours. That wasn't, to me, that didn't seem abnormal. It just seemed that I wanted to do that. So there was the desire to do it. There was the commitment to do it. There was all the extracurricular activities that I was engaged in. And there was a community that I was involved in that, supported it, whether it be my family or whether it be the people up at the club. And obviously, because I did so well, a lot of people were interested in my success. So they wanted to see me succeed, and there was a great deal of encouragement on that side. So I had the desire, I had the skill set, I had the training, I had the coaches, I had the desire, I had the time, I had I had the facilities, I had the ability to, and the means to go out and go do that. And I took every opportunity I could to make that happen for me. And the other thing that's, that when I've watched you is that you are able to take all these new techniques of coaching that wasn't available to me, and the tools like video. We never had video. We never got to watch ourselves play. You are now trying to take coaching to a level that you would see in, some of the professional sports, whether it be baseball or football or basketball. So you're really kind of looking at a much wider angle of information to present to your athletes that can only do nothing but make them better. So you're looking at a skill set not only from the player's point of view, but you're looking at a new skill set from a coach's point of view. And you are just trying to push as many new limits as possible, as to not only by engaging the technology that's out there, but also engaging the psychology of the sport. So.
Yeah, the inner game is really where, the next upgrade in sports happens, especially at the youth level, which hasn't spent a lot of time focusing on the mental game or the emotional game. And sometimes the biggest gains are actually made when you tap into and start to work with and regulate those systems. And it's almost easier to do when you're younger, because when you learn those skills and you become aware of those things at 12, 13, and 14, by the time you're 20, you already understand that. And, we've always seen that with really high level athletes like a Tiger Woods who started really early, or a Michael Phelps or a Serena Williams. They just had this mental edge in combination with incredible physical skills. And it usually came from developing those things at a younger age, and maybe a unique environment with a parent that focused on more of the psychology or mental parts of the game. So
Yes.
yeah, I mean, we're absolutely trying to push the limits of that, and you're right, use a wider angle and a larger perspective towards the game, and really take into consideration all the new things that are out there for technology and also intertechnology to be able to shift the game for the individuals and for the team. So yeah, I'm really interested in that. I think you obviously are somebody that was aware of those things at a really young age as an athlete, and that's one of the reasons why you were able to excel. So in terms of your maybe natural skill set with your own game, what was it that made you want to practice all the time? Was that just like a love for the game, and how did you fuel that? What obstacles did you have to overcome to make that kind of commitment?
The okay, so the only obstacle I had was myself, and I chose that was not going to be the obstacle. So at a very early age, I just said I want to coach and I want to win national champions. I want to be a national champion. So I said that when I was 12, but I always had a vision of what it is that I wanted to do, and I knew that I could do it. And I went out and I went in and I achieved it. And so I got to travel a lot, and that was another reinforcing factor. I got to meet a lot of new people. That was a reinforcing factor. I would play in a lot of tournaments, and I had a tendency of winning a lot. And so that was a reinforcing factor. So everything there was a snowball effect of reinforcement, not only with the people that I was meeting with, some of the coaches that I was playing with, and then the tournaments that I was playing with, and all the achievements that I was getting, that it just was a positive feedback system, and I kept essentially riding the wave. So
yeah, what athletes don't realize today is that this, the culture and the services that they have around them really allow them to extend their career. A lot of athletes stopped their sport at 20 or 25 or 30 because their body gave out and they just couldn't recover from different things. And now with the medical technology and the support systems, I mean, there's athletes playing amazing at the highest level, like a Tom Brady in the NFL, till they're 40.
right.
Or even older. And so, the potential career for athletes today is just extraordinary. And I'm so excited about that, because it just means that you're going to get a return on your investment for a longer period of time. Like
Yes.
one of the most frustrating things for, I think, female volleyball players in the United States is that, I mean, they do a lot to build themselves into an amazing volleyball player. And when college is over at 21, which is really when you start to hit your peak as a volleyball athlete, your career is over unless you leave the country and play professionally somewhere else. So, the fact that their bodies can be taken care of longer, there's more and more of a culture and an environment for it. And hopefully there's going to be a pro league in this country soon. They'll get a much bigger return on that investment, and be able to be a lifelong athlete, or at least be able to experience it in their prime. And
Yes.
for me, I mean, still to this day, I just love playing volleyball. My body's wired really well for it, and I know I'm not the only one having that experience. And I think it's one of the things that can really bring happiness into our lives. And that's ultimately what we want this to do for people and for athletes, for it to be something that, brings them development, brings them joy as a youth, gets them really focused and learning amazing development qualities as they get into those middle years and into their young adult years. And then
Right.
After that, it's just something they enjoy doing with their buddies, or
Right.
whatever. And that's amazing piece of their life, just
Yes.
learning or having a family. And I think we're all looking for activities that enrich who we are and enrich our lives. And I'm really trying to, come from a place of being the best volleyball club out there, providing the best volleyball training, the best volleyball environment, the best volleyball, structure, right? But knowing and having gone through that myself, I know that there needs to be more elements involved in that development package, and bringing more balance is really kind of the key concept that I think will lead us to outlining what this new paradigm looks like for youth athletes. And so, what's so interesting about this break and training in the gym is that it's really giving us this opportunity to add these other components, because we're not training and just doing volleyball technique, practice. Now we're at home. And so we can have that conversation about, what work ethic really is. We can have that conversation about nutrition. We can have that conversation about recovery. We can have that conversation about, how to develop mindfulness of your body, of your mind, and make sure that you're, doing things that help you, have the right dialogue, or get the rest that you need, and all those types of supportive, elements that really make a healthy athlete, and ultimately make an athlete with longevity, and an athlete with, a happy heart instead of
Yeah.
a machine heart. I think that
Yes.
was one of my biggest complaints as an athlete, was that, I was malleable, and I allowed myself to be turned into a really good volleyball machine. But at some point it just stopped being fun. My heart kind of got consumed by the play, and by the competition, and by the drilling and the working out, and it just became so physical, and it became so single pointed focused on,
Mhm.
executing X, Y, and Z to beat team Z, F, and A. And my heart just got lost in that arc, I guess you could say. And so I think if we bring a healthier approach to younger players, and we build a more dynamic structure that incorporates these additional elements that we're now more aware of, you can have a really happy athlete that, has a balanced life and has a really good understanding of themselves, you know, of their desire to practice 20 hours a week, but, maybe they should only do 10, because that's what allows them to, not break down as easily, or to be able to have some of those social components in their life. So yeah, this is really what we're going for. I think there's a lot of need for it. I think this is the time for it, and I think we have the tools to be able to do it with our community. So I'm really